So what's coming, the sap itself is not that high. Now the chaga is sitting on that tree, it's been doing it for 15 years. The chaga will have 130 parts per million of potassium, 130,000. It's the highest thing we've seen with potassium anywhere. And rubidium, and it's also got lots of cesium in it. So the chaga is something very, very special, but it's hard to find. With my researcher here, we went through the forests in northern Ontario, and we spent 2 hours, 3 hours, looking for a chaga. Saw over 1,000 birch trees. We saw one. And he was all excited. He says, oh, it's there. That's harvested. Well, it was about 60 feet up. We didn't have a ladder, so it's still there. I'm sure he's going back with a ladder someday.
Need some help.
What's in a chaga? What's in a chaga? Well, there's a lot of sterols, beta-glucan, SOD, superoxidized dismutase, the highest levels we've seen in anything. Betylenic acid, potassium, rubidium, cesium. What observations do we have? Well, it's a fungus on a birch tree. 10 to 15 years when you harvest this thing. Concentrates these alkali metals, used as anti-cancer agents. Betylenic acid fights prostate cancer. There's research right now on colon cancer with the chaga. We know that people who take chaga, it acts a bit as a laxative, and it's also a blood thinner. So it's got lots of properties. Now, my friend over here starts a company selling chaga, and I said, okay, well, what's your business plan? Well, I'm going to put it in capsules. People can take it in capsules instead of making tea out of it. I said, okay, that's nice. I went to 2 stores in the US. I can't find it in Canada yet. Once this catches on, this chaga, I don't think there'll be a big enough supply to service the need. But at this point, not a lot of people know about it. Anyways, I bought 2 bottles, both from the States, one from California and one from Florida. And we analyzed the capsules. It says big letters on the outside, chaga. Wonderful stuff. And they talk about different types of the flower of the chaga and the roots of the chaga and so forth. And we tested it. There's hardly anything in the pill. Less than 1%. It was all filler. So you've really got to be careful with the marketing. And you think you're taking something that's going to fight the cancers or prevent cancers, and it's all filler. There's not a lot of regulation in this stuff in the U.S.
Might be a good reason to not buy capsules, but get chunks.
It's a good reason not to buy capsules because you don't know what's in a capsule. I know that my friend here will have capsules in 2-3 weeks, and it's 100% pure chaga. But you're right, you don't know what's in a capsule. And I look at that from these same companies. I buy stuff I take, resveratrol and a lot of these other things, and I don't know if it's been tested. So you really don't know in a lot of these companies. They're good at marketing. Oh my God, the commercials are great. But be careful what you buy. I'm going to talk about one last thing before we finish here. I'm going to talk about cortisol. Cortisol is naturally produced in the body. It's an anti-inflammatory. If I hit my toe, stub my toe here, to fight the swelling, my body will produce cortisol. And there was a study that came out recently of 50-year-old men that had low cortisol in their hair. They had a 30% chance of a heart attack. That's the odds of a male, 50 years old, low cortisol in the hair. If you had high cortisol in your hair, your odds go to 70%. So it's telling you there's a stress somewhere inside. It's affecting you, and there's a good chance it's your heart. 2 years ago, I had my hair tested. Cortisol was low. Last year, I tested my hair again. I own part of the lab, so I got a free test. And it was high. It was high. And there has never been a heart attack in any of my uncles, my aunts, nobody's ever had a heart attack. Maybe they all died of cancer first. So I wasn't too worried about it, but it was high. So then in January of this year, I flew down to the States, and I flew in on a Sunday night, Monday morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, I was in the hospital. And I had an acute gallbladder attack. It was like a heart attack. So my high cortisol was saying something's happening inside. And my gallbladder got taken out, emergency operation, and I got it was in bad shape. Maybe I produced a lot of cortisol to protect me. But the story is, right now, my cortisol is back to normal. So it was telling me something was happening. I didn't think it was a heart attack, but something was happening. So cortisol is something else you can measure in your hair. Now, we talked a lot about different things today. I'm going to talk about just 2 more slides, tips for good health. Well, I think we all should consume Brazil nuts, high in selenium for your immune system. We should make sure you have a good serving of mushrooms on a regular basis. That's your cesium rubidium to stay basic. Cancer does not seem to grow in basic environments. So most people that have got cancers are acidic. Have the red beans and blueberries, the best antioxidants we could find. Don't smoke. It puts cadmium and lead and something called a PAH, is polyaromatic hydrocarbons, which are carcinogens into your body. Don't wear costume jewelry. Nickel and cadmium are a good chance of being absorbed through your skin. So, ladies, get the men to buy your silver and gold.
Yes.
Drink red wine and green tea. Don't travel to Iraq. And I've added Lebanon on here. My son went to work in the government in Lebanon. He was there for 6 months. My son now has uranium in his hair. War zones, you know, the military all deny it, but the evidence is there. They're using this depleted uranium, and it's really deadly. It's deadly on children, very high leukemia rates. I'm not pleased my son has uranium in his hair. He's the only one. Watch intake of foods with low copper to iron ratios. That's the Big Mac and a lot of these other foods. Eat lots of berries, cabbage, chocolate, citrus fruits, and little red meat. Or reduce your amount of red meat, unless you're going to have lobster with it, or shrimp, or something with copper. Make sure you're taking both together. Wear copper bracelets on a semi-regular basis. Your skin will go green. People don't like that, but that's copper going into your skin, going into your system. So that's not bad. You don't want to have too much copper, you don't want to have too little. But copper bracelets are not a bad idea. Eat lots of curry, garlic, soya, tomatoes. Avoid pickled foods with nitrates and smoked foods and fried foods. And the last thing here, be aware of stress in your life. Stress is a killer. Now, it wouldn't be fair to give you this talk without showing you my profile. Now, this is my profile a couple years ago. I had just retired. I retired 4 years ago. This is probably 3 years ago. And I do not have a pension. So I sold stock in the company I used to work for with a lot of you guys in Maxam. And not having a pension and being a bit of a gambler, I put a lot of money into the stock market 2.5 years ago. And or 3 years ago. And the stock market went from 14,000 to 7,000, so that caused a lot of stress in my life. And if you look at those 2 middle lines there, that's my sodium potassium. It should be 2 to 1, it's almost 1 to 1. It shows I've got some stress issues in my life. The other thing that happened in my life at the same time, the same month I retired, my wife was a politician. So she was a member of parliament in Ottawa, and she retired the same month I retired. So we did not see much of each other for 15 years. She would come home on weekends, and she'd have an event every weekend, so I wouldn't even see her on weekends. Now I've got to live with her, and she with me. That caused stress in my life too. So now I did my hair again This is 2 years after this, and this is this year actually, after we've been living together again for a couple of years. Those red lines on sodium potassium are gone. My potassium's at 21, my sodium's at 60, almost 2 to 1. Much, much healthier there. My stress is gone. My selenium is I can't even read, it's small, but my iron is nice and low. I like to see iron as low as possible. Mine's at 9. You know, when you get to 20, I start to worry. So I'm at 9. It looks great. Everything looks on the low side, if anything. Maybe I'm not absorbing as much as I can. I'm getting older. But I'm really happy. My lead and mercury have gone down. I do take Brazil nuts on a semi-regular basis. So I'm much healthier than I was. But it shows you what stress was doing to me in the stock market. And my wife that is now home.
And hers improved too?
I'd like to thank you for your attention. We're here to answer questions. We're here to draw for the prizes. A lot of what you saw today, especially the foods, was not my research. A lot of it came from a book I highly recommend called Foods to Fight Cancer. It's by Beliveau and Jean Gras. It's out of Quebec. And it's a great, great book talking about, it starts off by talking about cancers, how it metastasizes, how it grows in your system, and what the foods do. And what you want to do is prevent these things. Once you have a cancer, then you're fighting an uphill battle. Let's prevent the cancers. Let's live till 110 or 120, healthy, have our wits about us, and so forth. So, Ramit, did you want to draw for these prizes?
Yeah. Sorry.
So, we'll start by drawing for the free hair analysis. So
Okay.
one of you will.
Maybe you can take one.
Okay, so we have a number, and I'm not wearing my glasses. Your numbers are small here. I'll put them on. I get them by the dozen. Okay. Number 63.
Wow! Right.
Congratulations, and hopefully you don't have a lot of stress, but we'll be able to measure it. Now the next prize will be the book on the Chaga mushroom.
Maybe Monica will do that.
We wrote a chapter in this book, and it's interesting to see what this Chaga can do. It's something very special. And we have number 69.
Yes.
Oh, all right.
And the last one here, we have a copper bracelet.
Number 144.
144. Now, we're open for questions. We'll try to answer them. We don't have all the answers, by the way, but we'll try.
One question. You said that Chaga is very high in potassium. Wouldn't it offset the level of potassium sodium in the body?
Okay, so the question is, the Chaga is very, very high in potassium. Will it affect the ratio of sodium and potassium? And I suspect there's so much sodium in your system, it's not going to make that much of a difference. It's almost like taking that strontium when you're adding strontium to your body. You don't see it accumulate. The body uses what it needs and discards the remainder. It's water soluble, so there's no big storage of potassium in your system. Just like rubidium and cesium, there's no storage depot in the body. A lot of elements do have storage depots. They don't.
If I can comment on this. And too, like we did lots of excretion in the body, like, you know, like what's the urine level of cesium and rubidium, we find it's high. And that's our theory too, because we are losing all this alkaline element. We're supposed to get this alkaline element on a regular basis. When we are young, we are alkaline. When we get old, we lose this alkaline element. That's why we have to have the food which has this soluble water alkaline element. Carla, I think.
Yes, I heard Dr. Babuder mentioning that it's good to be low in iron. I went to my doctor and he told me that I'm also registered as a so what should I do?
When I say it's good to be low in iron, what I'm talking about is iron as we measure it in the hair. Okay? If you're anemic, quite often it's because you're not absorbing it well. And one of the things to do is take with your foods vitamin C. Vitamin C will help absorption, especially the ferric, which is in a lot of fruits and vegetables and spinach and asparagus, by the way, has got more iron than spinach. And I was born or raised with, Popeye and spinach. Well, asparagus has more iron than spinach. But taking it with vitamin C will boost you up very quickly. Yes, you have a question?
I was just wondering if, because Chaga is hard to come by, but it takes so long to develop, if you've done any analysis on propolis, because I'm a beekeeper, and it sort of does the same thing as anti-cancerous and all that. Propolis is
The pollen?
No pollen, propolis. The bees collect the rosins off trees in the
Right,
area,
right.
and that's what propolis is. They glue the hive together.
I have not looked at it, but we'd love to. If we can get a sample, we'd love to look
Did I
at
send
it.
it in to you?
Yep.
Will it come to the Toms if I send
You get it to myself or Ramiz, and we'll get it analyzed. Yes.
You talked about silver in the diet, but you mentioned briefly gold. Can you talk maybe a little bit about the...
We have not seen anything associated with disease in gold. Gold is pretty inert, but we do see more gold in the hair of women and men. So they would wear more gold. It's still being absorbed through the skin, but we do not see many diseases at all related to gold. So when I looked at different diseases, you sort of measure the healthy people, get a median on the healthy, the sick, and then those that died. And we still have work to do in terms of separating the diseases. So we have to separate all the cancers, look at the healthy levels, that won't change, but the cancers and those that died of cancer. And then you start to get patterns building up. There have been some surprises, like chromium. Chromium is tied in with the sugar metabolism. I would have thought we'd see a difference between the healthy and the sick and the dead. So no difference. So here, from my perspective, chromium is not a good thing to look at in the hair for different diseases. So chromium's not one. Vanadium, I think, is another one. There's several that we didn't see a big difference. Some of them, it's a huge difference. And the biggest ones were iron. So I worry whenever I see high iron. We had one Maxam employee, and we talked about the level should be, mine's at 9 right now, 9 to 15. You don't want to be much higher than that. And we had one employee at Maxam was 600.
Oh my God.
600. He passed away. We knew he was sick.
Do you know when he died?
It's one of the highest levels we've seen anywhere. So, he died of a cancer. It's telling you something is happening in your body.
Yeah.
It's,
Now you mentioned that strontium, and when strontium is high in the body, it'll show up in the hair. Is that right, or is it leaching it from the body?
when it's leaching from the bones, we see it in the hair. It's probably going in the urine also. It's moving away from the bones.
Okay. Is that the same with all of the minerals?
You're going to lose the strontium, you're going to lose the calcium, you're going to use the magnesium. The problem I have with monitoring just the calcium and magnesium is, especially calcium, there's so many things in our diet that's enriched. If you're taking a caltrate in the morning, you're getting a dose of calcium. Vitamin pills, a dose of calcium. Everything is, and so, I'd rather monitor the strontium because there's nothing out there that's fortified with strontium. So it's a better indicator of what's happening.
And with regards to iron, higher iron levels, the CDC now has said that everybody, there should be, once you're over 50% of the population should be at least checked for iron overload, especially if you're Northern Europeans.
Yeah, there is a lot of studies, and more studies coming out on iron all the time. I know there was one of the storage proteins for iron in your body is ferritin, and they measure this. And at some point, there's so much iron that all the ferritin's tied up all the iron, and there's just excess iron. The ferritin is saturated. They've done a study following people with saturated ferritin in their system. 20 years later, they looked at these same people again. I think it was 27 or 28% of them had died. Higher incidence of death because you've got overload of iron. And what she's saying is that there is indications now. The government is saying as you get older, you should reduce the iron intake.
Well, that's for genetic. They're saying genetically, a lot of the Northern European have high iron levels. So the best way is to bleed yourself, they say.
Yeah, we saw very high iron levels in Africa also, very high. And you know, we had to change our norms. We had a healthy group without AIDS, and we had to say, well, this is the norm now because this is Africa. So their diet, the soil is red in Africa. There's lots of iron. So you know they're high, but that's also going to cause their problems with not living as long as normal. Yes.
I just want to mention about the iron. I think there is a connection. My daughter has well water. She lives in the country, and her water is so high in iron they don't drink it. And I have a feeling that originally when these systems were put in, they were put in with iron pipes, and that's in your well.
I think it's more ground iron. Like I have a place in Florida, and you know there's a well that goes down, and the water smells iron sulfide, and it smells, but it's in the water. It's not from the pipes. I think it's in the water. It's just the groundwater. Certain levels, there's lots of iron. Yes.
Yeah, the chaga now, is it available anywhere in Canada as a natural food, the chaga mushrooms, or this has to be only in pills?
The chaga mushroom is something special. It's been used as a medicinal mushroom for 500 years. It started in Russia, and it's been used to fight cancers. It's got lots of different things in it because it's been, you know, fermenting, if you will, for 15 years. What you will get on the market soon is a tincture, which is a water extract, which will take out those base elements, cesium, rubidium, and an alcohol extract is going to take out all the good sterols, and they put it together, you have drops. That's going to become available very, very soon. But the chaga itself, at this point, a lot of people just make tea out of it, and they can reuse it 2-3 times. Because every time you're steeping it in warm water, you're getting